If life was meant to be lived happily, then I must be dead, because inside I feel 6 feet under. It does not help that I'm being pulled down by gravity, but as I go deeper and become weaker, I begin to wonder.
What's up, folks? Jake here, Pastor J Online, also Pastor J Media, and now Pastor J Podcast. Man, I'm so pumped to be here with you for I'd say special podcast. Hopefully they're all going to be pretty special for you. But I got my friend Larry Cooper, LC3, in the house with me. We're going to chat about some things that'll be hopefully a lot of fun. I want to give him a chance to introduce himself.
Yeah, my name is Larry Cooper, a.k.a. otherwise known as LC3. I make music of all types and genres, sing, rap. I also produce and all that fun stuff that happens with trying to promote yourself and whatever. So, also a believer in Christ, saved by grace, and highly favored. And glad to be here hanging out with the homies and Pastor J. Thanks for the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about what it's like to be a believer in music and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. I don't have the time to go through the whole story, but after moving to where I live now, my family and I and some other folks started a church. Met Larry through that. Worship leader, part of the team. Just for years, man, it was so fun. Yeah. The churchy thing, right? Doing ministry together, whatever. But it definitely, I think, has created a bit of a friendship with us, I hope, which is fun.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you don't live here anymore, but you're back in town for the weekend.
Nostalgic.
So I was like, man, what a great opportunity just to ask a few questions. Hopefully they're going to be good. We got a couple questions, then a lightning round at the end. That'll be kind of fun. But let me kick it off, man. Let's get right to it. First thing I'd love to ask, I know we didn't introduce necessarily probably everything, but this will get us into it pretty deep, I'm sure. But the first question I want to ask you is, does your faith impact your music career? And if so, how?
Not at all, actually.
Not at all?
I've got nothing to do with God, but I just say I'm a believer. Now I'm playing. Obviously, Lord, don't cancel me yet.
Yeah, right.
No, definitely. I think the thing about making music in its entirety is it's a creative process anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've this year specifically been going after it. 23 is for some reason a special number to me. And for years looking into 2023, I've wanted to do something or have something big happen with the music.
Yep.
And so I decided early on that I wanted to do a song a week for the year. Yeah. And it's always good to set big goals. And, you got to set yourself to it and keep yourself to it if you're passionate about it. And when it comes to the faith in the midst of it and expression in music, is you're always trying to just make something that is from the heart, something you enjoy, and something that when you're trying to write and sing for an audience, you got to try to connect with people.
Yeah.
And besides that, as a believer, trying to then write music that is impactful, and it is going to... A lot of my audience is not saved. That's my presumption, is that a lot of them are not.
Right.
And so a lot of it is me trying to take what I have learned through my own testimony, through my own walk with God, and through college, through church, and try to bring it to that audience in a way that it does become good news for them. And in a way that is going to be impactful longer than the song's duration is.
Yeah.
So in that way, the message itself does really... impact the way that I do music and with a lot of the messages. A lot of times, too, as a believer and making music is, and we all struggle with this anyway, but I made a decision a long time ago to not have profanity in any way in the music.
Yeah.
And so it makes collaborations interesting because collaborations are a huge deal. In trying to reach a bigger audience,
right?
And making that decision early on, I've had a lot of awkward conversations. I've actually had a lot of people send me verses before, and they have. And when you switch to like a hip hop lyrical mind, like it's really good bars or like the syllables sound really good, but it just goes against the trying to be in the world and not of it concept.
Yeah. I got you.
Like, as simple as saying something like "flip the bird."
Yeah.
Just because it insinuates something in people's minds. I don't know why, but I imagine it as my mother's listening. What is she going to think? No. But there's been times when I haven't listened to that either.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, in some ways, trying to find the fine line between glorifying God as well as being in the world, not of it, and not being so heavenly minded that you're of no earthly good either.
Wow, yeah.
So it's a trapeze act sometimes, while still trying to be creative and have fun with it. So it does play a huge role, at least for me. Maybe not for most artists that I am with, but it's a huge part. Yeah.
Well, I just think it's. I mean, you're definitely a musician, but just when I think, I don't know if you want to use the word content creation, if you want to, I don't know, but just essentially like a person's way of expression, a person's way of communicating with the outside world, right? It's always interesting to see, to ask the question essentially, what influences what you do, right?
Yeah.
What influences how you talk, what you say, the standards you set, like you just mentioned. And I don't know, this isn't a question that we really prepped for, but it just makes me think as I'm listening to you, because I'm kind of putting it through my own filter at times, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's a really great thing, I feel like at least, that when it comes to being a Christian, somebody that follows God, I feel like He gives us probably more grace than we realize, and I think He might give us even more creative freedom. Now, the Bible talks about this stuff, right? And this isn't like a strictly, Bible, Bible lesson or something we're having right here, but it does inform, I think, what I do and what you do, right? And the idea that, like you said, right, to be in the world, not of it, but at the same time, don't be, so heavenly minded that we're not any use here on this planet, but to balance those two, and there's tension, right?
Yeah.
There's tension of, like, you just said it, right? Like, sometimes I do hold that standard, sometimes I don't. And how do you balance maybe the pressure of hitting that standard, and then when you decide not to, whether it was an accident or chosen, right? How do you balance the pressure of being like, okay, this is all right, let me be calm right here, and let me actually, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go in, I'm going to produce that, I'm going to put that out there, even though it didn't line up over here. I said I'm not going to have this in my stuff, and then this one has it.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How do you balance that weight or that tension?
So I think, like I said, it's like a trapeze act anytime you're going to do it, because it's you're trying to, on one hand, be obedient to the Lord, and then on the other hand, there's this battle of trying to be, maybe not obedient, but trying to be creative, right? And I don't think that you can only do one or only do the other. I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And as an example, I do a lot of songs that are exclusively, like, when I get on TikTok, I'll get the algorithm suggesting to me people that react to music all the time.
Yep.
And so you can go on there, pay a dude like $5 to listen to your music.
Okay.
And there's like, anywhere between 10 to 50 to 100 random people in this live, either trying to get their music heard, or just trying to, listen to underground people that they haven't heard before.
Right.
And a lot of times, if I am a repeat person in there, because I have such a catalog at this point, I'll be like, okay, what kind of song do you want to listen to?
I see.
And do you want to listen to a Christian hip-hop song, a jazzy song, or an EDM banger? That's usually like how I distinct to people between the three different types. And I think that's how I balance it, to where I'm not exactly pigeonholing myself in, okay, this guy is a Christian hip-hop artist. I think in the same way that, like, Lecrae and other people have gotten flack for it, to where they've tried to, bend around things and not necessarily be called a Christian artist, but they're a Christian that is an artist. But I mean, I have caught myself in situations where, there could definitely, I could look back on something and be like, well, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But, it's just, we're all sinners that fall short of the glory of God, right? Like, but, it's just every day getting up and trying to, glorify Him while having fun, while trying to reach the world, and not necessarily ostracize people for being non-believers either.
That's good. That's good.
Because Jesus didn't do that. That's kind of the trapeze act that I love playing every week, for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's cool, man. It makes me think, I don't even want to pretend to be the level of content creation that you're in right now, but what little bit I get to do. the thing I think that is probably an undervalued opportunity for especially Christians is this. When we do something that doesn't seem to make sense, and that probably happens more often than not. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, whenever we maybe say, so let me take me as an example. So I put out, Twitch content. I like to stream video games live.
Right. Yeah.
And there's certain video games you can imagine that, people come all the time in the chat. They'll come to me like, "Wait, are you like a real pastor, or you just have that on your tag? What are you?" And some of that's brought on, I think, by maybe the games I choose to play.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the thing that I try to really hold fast to is I'm not making a declaration with my choice of game, which is hard because I actually am making a declaration, even though I'm not. Like people are perceiving it as a declaration.
Right.
But it allows me to enter into that community for a moment and listen, be okay being wrong.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sometimes right? Like that was something, man, in this most recent pandemic world we've been in. That was something I think I grew to learn was I don't have to always be right. Like when I make a decision, I don't have to be declaring I'm right.
Yeah.
Instead, I can be declaring like this is just the decision I'm making.
Yeah.
And let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And there's freedom in there, right?
Yeah.
Like not taking advantage of grace. The Bible's clear on that, right?
Sure.
Not to take advantage because you cheapen it.
Yeah.
But to actually receive it.
Yeah.
Right. There's tension there. So that's good, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
This question probably you might have even just answered some of it, but this will probably just roll the ball right along for us. But what is one lesson in your music career? What's one lesson that your music career has taught you that you think everyone should learn at some point in their life?
I think the biggest one is it's not going to fall on your lap, and it's not like if you are so good, you are so good at what it's going to happen for you, and you don't have to do anything except be good at it. It doesn't work like that. Like everyone it's just I've heard people say, talent's only going to get you so far. Okay. When you grow up, you're so talented. You're beyond your years, they say. Yeah. But it's really talent's only going to get you so far if you're not going to work at it. You could have way less talent, but if you put in the hours, you're going to go a lot farther. Yeah. And there's people that they've put in the hours. They are successful in their own eyes and people around them. They might make a lot of money at whatever it is they do. And they're not necessarily talented at it. They'll hire guys that are talented at being creative at, marketing their product or whatever. Yeah. That's something that I've had to convince myself of over time is that, you can be talented, but you have to take initiative on using that talent to get yourself further.
Right on, man.
And when your talent's not working and you're like, I have, for me, writer's block and I don't know what to do. It's no, you have to just do it. In the same way, like I was terrible. Maybe not all the way, but I was very bad at being a very studious student in college. Yeah. And when you treat it like, some people will use it as a job, but when you treat it like you have an expectation by a professor that expects you, this is your curriculum, this is due on Friday, this needs to be done by then. Yep. And a lot of people will argue, why am I doing this degree? It's not something I want. Why am I taking this class that has nothing to do with what I want to do? Yep. For me, music is what I want to do. Right. And in all the things that we've already talked about. So why wouldn't I then accept this expectation like, okay, Friday is the day. So it just so happens that now I have this, thank God, these gifts and talents to be able to do it better. Yeah. But it does take discipline. It's not it's not just going to be handed to you.
Man, that's a lesson right there. That's good, dude. And just we were going over these questions beforehand, and this is one of the questions you were like, I might get a little passionate.
Yeah, I might get a little aggravated. Yeah, because
so it's so true though. I mean, you're so right. I'll give you this example. This is just coming to my head. I heard Kobe Bryant say this one time about Shaquille O'Neal. So now, Shaquille O'Neal, if you're watching this, I didn't say it. Kobe Bryant said no.
No, I said it.
But
anyway.
I don't remember. This is not going to be quote, obviously, but just he was getting interviewed about something, and somebody asked Kobe. He said, "Hey, how many? Oh my gosh, what was it? Something about how good do you think Shaquille O'Neal would have been if he had your work ethic?"
Yeah,
because we know that about Kobe Bryant, right? That's what he was. Among many things, he was known for having an incredible work ethic, right?
Right.
And he just kind of like laughs and looks at the guy, and he's like, man, I would have a ring for almost every year we played together if that guy had my work ethic, right?
Oh my gosh,
so like to your point, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Shaquille O'Neal, incredibly gifted, right?
Yeah.
And gift too that you can't, like, not competency gifts.
No, yeah.
It's like come out of the womb gift, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you can line those things up and not just expect, hey, this is just the way I'm wired. Hey, I've got a propensity to this. I got a gift to that, so I'm going to succeed. But to tie those things in.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the win-win, if you're doing it with something you love.
Yeah. Yep.
Man, it'll be fun along the way.
It is.
Right on.
Yeah, man.
All right. How about this? What is the most misunderstood aspect of your music career?
Misunderstood aspect of my music career.
And this could be like something that even you came in expecting, but you know it was misunderstood, right? You got a different perspective. Maybe it's friends, family, other Christians, the church.
Oh yeah, I think one recently actually is just because you going along with all this, just because you do invest time and talent.
Okay.
And on top of that, right? And this goes back into the giving thing. Like people would say, you're so talented, you just need to get it in front of the right person, and you just need to get a record deal and have this, and this, and you'll have the money and you could do it. Like, money's not even going to do it either. Like, just having money, but like, how many billions of dollars do advertisers pay to put a product in front of people, and then the product is terrible?
Yeah,
and it sucks.
Right.
So just because you invest time and talent and money into something doesn't necessarily mean people have to then listen to it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's an algorithmic thing. Sometimes it just might be that God doesn't want people to listen to it. And other times just might not be the right time. There's strategies for that. There's certain months of the year in the music industry that people just don't even listen to music. Like January is supposed to be a dead time, because it's after the holidays.
And you chose to say,
I'm
going to release a song
I'm going to release a song a week. And content creators have said it the same thing on YouTube and whatever. They're like, people are not in homes anymore, and they've spent all their money, and they're like, oh, Valentine's Day is coming. Like, people go into it knowing that their AdSense is going to be way less.
Sure.
So, I mean, just because you have even money and all those things going forward doesn't necessarily mean something's going to be successful either.
Yeah.
And it's not even necessarily like all of it's a gamble going into it. You just kind of have to enjoy doing it. Kind of know, okay, the people that are successful at it, they've done A, B, and C, so I'll try to do it, and maybe I'll be successful. I think another thing, too, is kind of just learning what success is for you.
Okay.
And that it's not going to be equal for everybody. For some people, they'll be happy with not really having an online presence, going and touring around, their capital region or whatever, and, making a few $1,000s, and a lot of people knowing them and doing radio interviews, and that will be successful in their eyes. And then they can go back to their 9-to-5, or maybe they make enough to where they don't need to have a 9-to-5. Or for me, like, I get really excited about just the things that I've accomplished. I'm the dude that, like, I'm a fan of my music. I'm like Kanye West, like, yeah, I think I'm good. What are you going to do about it? But I'm not going to say all the things Kanye West says. And like, I'll go back and listen to, and I've done it because I would think about doing it for years. I've gone back and listened to stuff that I released 10 years ago. Been like, there's some good things in this. I want to remix this, and then never did. And then it was like, well, you need a song this week, so let's get it out there. And then I would go back and remix something old. I mean, that's what today, whatever date today, April 28th, I did that with my buddy Christian, who's in the back. We wanted to do it, and we talked about it, and then we pulled the trigger and did it. So, I mean, it's knowing that it's not going to be given to you. You got to go out and get it, and just knowing what success is for you.
I was just about to say, just hearing you, I'm trying to, if I could encapsulate what you just said, it would be knowing what success looks like for you.
Yeah.
Right. And that probably is a misconception, right? Misunderstood thing. Even going into something, I'm sure we all, because some of us maybe have that vision, that dream of like, hey, I know what success is. But a lot of times we're going into something because we have a desire for a piece of it.
Sure.
And then all we know is what we see, right? So, like, especially music and content creation, gosh, it's like a bit of irony or something in there, right? Like what even gives you sometimes the vision for it is what you see of it.
Yeah.
And then when you get into it, it's like, oh, maybe that's not it.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe success for me isn't to make a bunch of money or even do it for a living or to do what. Maybe success is, and I'm not putting words in your mouth here. This is just for me or maybe some others. Maybe success is, collaborating with friends. Maybe success is just, I take this podcast, for instance. Like, success for me would be just having this conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
And the fact that we could have this conversation, and we've had similar ones, but we probably never had, honestly, quite as an intentional conversation as this, right? But to have the conversation and then just to put it out there.
Yeah. Yep.
Just to see what might happen with it, right? Like, whether it's us getting to watch it again later, in 5 years, when we both go back and watch this, we're like, oh my gosh, we were idiots, or whatever.
Oof, yeah, I'm so sorry for the cringing you're doing in the future.
Yeah, right. Sorry, future self, you know. But seriously, that's so crucial, man. A misconception. Just don't let somebody else, so now I'm speaking for me, don't let somebody else tell you what success means.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big deal. That's a pretty cool lesson. And it opens up for freedom, you know what I mean? It opens up just for true creativity, and that's probably where innovation happens, to be honest, and not to assume, because that's a lofty goal, right? That you or I are we're going to step into an environment and we're going to be the innovator. But but maybe you never know, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I think innovation truly comes when somebody doesn't tell you how to do it, or what it should look like.
Yeah,
something special can happen.
Yeah, I think part of it too is like, with all of that, it's really expectations from others or even your old self or whatever about your achievements that you might not have yet.
Yeah.
Part of it might even be jealousy of wanting to be like so-and-so or that big artist that just sold their catalog for $50 billion or something. But I think then what is to learn from that is, okay, there's something desirable about that might not be inherently wrong, that you can set goals to try to get to that point. I saw someone, it might have been Kobe or something, was like, or no, it was maybe Denzel Washington, I think, said like, dreams only stay as dreams if you don't set goals for yourself. Yeah. And that's exactly it. Like, expectations are good for yourself. Don't let everyone else's expectations of you necessarily hinder you from growing.
Yeah.
But don't then take your dreams and goals and not do anything with them either. That's right. Set things up for yourself.
It's like that tension. There's just tension all throughout all this stuff, right? The tension of like that there's wisdom in watching others, do things that we maybe want to do or want to be at, because you can learn from that, right? Like, why not learn from somebody that's farther along than us, right? There's wisdom there, but there's also tension, and don't let that define what it is that you do. Don't let that define your journey.
And it's so strange because exactly that, I haven't even talked about this, which is there have been people that I've later didn't realize later collaborated with or later become friends with in the scene that I'm in, that the first time I saw them, I didn't like them. My reaction was like, why? And it was rooted in, there's something desirable about what they're doing, and I can't put my finger on it, and I don't like it. As an example, one of my best buddies, his name is Matt PFV. Matt, I'm going to send this to you, and you're going to hear this.
What's up, Matt?
And I'm going to tell you exactly. The first time I saw Matt there was this thing put together by a guy named Crypt, who reacted to Preach It and whatever years ago. He put together something called the YouTube Cypher, and it was the first one. And I didn't realize this till way later. Matt was in it. And instead of having, this was my critique at the time, instead of having a 16, Matt had 8 bars.
Okay.
And Matt was all face tatted up. And he was like, his flow at the time, like, ugh, why? Why is he like, and years later, getting involved with the crew, I guess you could say, that I'm involved with now, he's the guy that does a bunch of my music videos. I played Halo with him a bunch. We still talking today. He's the guy that was the one that got me to be like, all right, I'm going to do a song a week this year. He has done that. He's got songs booked into like 2 years from now. Like, he's way ahead on it, to the point where he's like, he put up an Instagram story today like, oh yeah, this song released. Listen to it with me, because I don't remember it, so it'll be just as new to me as it is to you.
Oh, no kidding.
And so that to say that, even in the midst of like jealousy in stuff, like you can learn from people, but you have to make that decision.
That's right.
It might just be that I'm naive and maybe too peaceable with people.
Sure.
But I've had a tremendous benefit with people that my original reaction may have been, no, I don't like that.
Yeah,
and then just,
not
end up making friends. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right on, man. Okay.
I don't know if you run into that with Twitch at all, with maybe people that you don't agree with. And you end up learning like, oh, there's overlays or whatever. I don't know if you have anything like that, but
I mean, I definitely think like if I'm, really hearing what you're saying, I think I am. For me, it's like again, just like grace and freedom. It's just what I feel like we're really talking about in a lot of this stuff, like pursuing things, grace and freedom, and just not being, you said it a minute ago, not being pigeonholed into a certain way of doing it. And I run across that a lot. I mean, I whether it's just meeting new streamers, whether it's even in the church world, right? Like other pastors. I mean, gosh, that is we don't have time for this, right? Like as far as talking about church and how we do it and the cookie cutter way. And if you don't, you're over here and you're out there and you're not here and you're not with us.
Starts,
it's like wild.
Yeah.
But just the freedoms. Good accountability. Again, we don't want to completely abandon things that we believe are foundational, right? It's not that, but it's just really having the freedom to lean in and say, hey, let's belong before we believe, right? Let's be a part before we judge it too harshly. Let's I don't know, right? So I definitely run into that in different ways.
Oh, last misconception. I think we're still on that question.
Let's do it.
Literally, and I've seen it in Christian hip hop circles.
Okay,
is just because the message is good. Apparently this is when I'm on the attack here.
Right.
Just because the message is good does not mean that the music is good. We talked about doing things in excellence in church years ago, and I know a lot of churches talk about this now. And the world might want to learn a thing or two about it. Or maybe not the world, but like people, when it comes to music, just because the intention is there to want to be good, there has to be like a want to learn how to be better. Right? There needs to be the ability to be teachable, right? With learning how to get there. And I think a lot of artists that I've run into in lives and I know they've talked about it on the Christian Hip Hop Live with Rapzilla. Shout out to Rapzilla that just because you're preaching the gospel doesn't mean people want to hear it with the way that you sound. Like you have to be in the band with you and offbeat, out of tune, not mixed, not mastered. Now I suck at mixing and mastering. All right, and that's something that like. Build a team around you. If you're really passionate about it, you will set goals to build a team, be passionate about it, and go after it. But again, just because, just like what I said, I could have that all together and have thousands invested in music videos, and then they get 500 streams and 500 views on YouTube. Like that's gonna happen. So understand. If you want to do it, don't just think that because it's the guy. And I started there, right?
That's good.
I started terrible when my first songs are awful. My songs from 5 years ago were terrible. My songs last week might have been really bad, right? But there's a desire to want to learn and be teachable more learn the tricks of the industry
and get better, man, right?
So
just get better.
That's what it's all about. I think not even necessarily. I'm not even picking anybody out necessarily.
No, sure.
It's just wanting to, not expecting to go somewhere, but be teachable and be ready to learn. I'm still ready to. There's so much nonsense that I haven't learned that I'm just like, all right, I'll put this stock plug-in right here, and I don't know what any of this means, but it sounds like it's working, so we'll leave it at that. That's just another.
I feel that in Christian circles, and this might segue into kind of the last little question here, and then we got lightning round for you after that. But so the question is actually this: it's what's one thing that you wish Christians / the church could learn or would learn at this point in history? And if you want a second, like I'll just kind of add this to let you. This is going to be we probably should have started off with this, and it would have been the only question we asked. But I want to connect this here for a second because I think something you mentioned the church world and Christians have a hard time with this because we tend to think just because it's done within the confines of church or within the confines or under the banner of God or even the gospel at times. And there's tension here, so don't burn me at the stake yet.
Right.
But just because we're doing it in that category, it means it's going to be efficient and good.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I think there's still, we still carry a burden to, as you see in the New Testament, when Paul walks into a community and says, hey, I see these gods you guys are serving and worshiping, and there's one over here that is the unknown one. Let me step in here and get creative, and let me actually address that God for a moment, right? So he took the truth, and it wasn't just for him in that moment sufficient enough to say, I'm going to come and proclaim it. He actually found a way to be creative and enter into that community. And it took work, right? It took a solid foundation of belief for him, right? So anyway, that's what I feel like that might be, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you definitely seem pretty passionate about that, and that might be a lesson that Christians in the church could learn at this point in history. But if you have another one, by all means.
That was basically where I was going, was talking about the, I guess, frustration that I've had is that, and it might even be just overarching, it's just believers when it comes to the world, and I might look back on this and say this is wrong, or I might not, or I might be right on the money. I have no idea. Buckle your seatbelts.
Hey, let's have it.
Christians, what are we called to do? The Great Commission and everything that as believers we're supposed to do is be a light to the world, speak the truth, and let the Holy Spirit do the rest with getting people saved. And then after that, try to disciple people. And then someday the world is going to end. The sky is going to crack. There's going to be horns and whistles blowing and things and seals busted. And there's going to be people dying and people coming back and stupidness. And then in the midst of that, there's going to be a new heaven and new earth. And Jesus is going to be back ruling. And then it's not going to be anymore. And Satan's going to come out and go, stop it! And then he's going to die. And then every non-believer and every demon's going to die. And then we'll be left like, wow, that was crazy. And then he'll say, all right, it's time for the battle pass and all the rewards that you've earned. You get them now. And
that was a lot of theology.
That was a lot of theology.
A couple of seconds.
And that's to say,
what you got?
We're not bringing, and I think we've talked about this years ago, but we're not supposed to be trying to make America or the world the kingdom of God right now. I think there's a lot of where we're trying to reach people with what we do, with our content creation, with the message of the gospel, and trying to be an example as a believer to non-believers and to believers. But we're not making it the heaven on earth right now, and we can't get mad and upset when that doesn't happen. We are in the world and not of it. So I just see so many people get upset and angry and offended with how people are. Can you believe he wore Satan's shoes with blood in it? This is the world we live in. What are you talking about? There's so much stuff that happens. Jesus looks at us and, can you believe all the sin on him? And that's my son. That is my son. I love him. And just, if we're supposed to have the same spirit that rose him from the dead in us, and we're supposed to be a shining example of him to non-believers and to believers, to the world itself.
That's right.
And but we get offended at the unholiness when that's what we are and what we were. And the only reason we're not is because of him. It seems silly. And it just seems very unmature in the faith, as the writer of Hebrews would say. So that's kind of where I'm at with what would I say,
what's the lesson to be learned?
The lesson to be learned for Christians today in this point in history. It just seems like that we're not mature in some ways. That we... and maybe not all Christians are conservative or Republican or whatever, and not even necessarily that we need to be tolerant of everything that's happening around us, because there's a lot of stuff that should be intolerable. But, oh my gosh, we talk about not wanting to, about cancel culture and it's stupid, and then we do the same thing.
You're right.
So there's Absolutely. Just, in the point we're at in history when we're looking back on it, cringe. And I don't know if it's going to get any better. Maybe someday when it's all over and we're looking at our spiritual gifts at the end of it, then it'll be a different story. But I think one thing that I myself even am trying to look at is spiritual maturity. And then what it looks like to be that way, not just what would Jesus do, but how do, as a person, go into the nightclubs and try to show Jesus to people.
That's good.
As weird as that might be to a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's what Jesus did. He went into the dens of the thieves, and they called him a thief.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of one thing I guess I've been chewing on a minute.
No, it's good. I totally agree. I think that's really good. And I would actually want to add this because I don't know. I'm sure that there's going to be some people watching this. Certainly us. Again, at some point we'll watch this back. I have no doubt. But some folks watching this that are going to be Christians or believers, part of the church. And man, that's a powerful message, right? To really just say almost. Again, I'm trying to just hear what you're saying here, where I can learn something from it too, and to say, hey, look, we live in a world that is not of God. It was made by God, but not of God. So let's not be okay with it acting that way, but let's at least expect it.
Yeah.
Expect it,
not be surprised by it.
Right?
Can you believe that?
Like we can be appalled by things, right? But not be like, oh, I never expected that, or I never oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And it's sort of this is almost what I would want to add, sort of change the question, and I want to answer this one. If we could say something to non-Christians watching this at this point in history, I think what would be just my heartbeat, man, it breaks my heart when these things happen. I know that the church and Christians, we really, if I can speak for myself and probably a few others, and apologize on our behalf, we jump into these environments that, like I just mentioned, aren't of God. And we try to manipulate them into becoming as if they are of God.
Right, yeah.
When the circumstance and environment doesn't make anything of God or not, right? Sure. It's the people, it's the spirit, it's the thing that is carrying the image of God, which we believe is the human, the being, right? And for us to enter into those moments and try to manipulate it, to change it to where it feels more holy without addressing the person, without addressing the soul and the heart at stake. And there's so many hot button issues I won't mention right now. They'll be podcasts by themselves, I'm sure. But the thing I would say to non-Christians is when you see a Christian enter into a moment and say, hey, I really don't think that's how we should do it. Can I share a better way? Those are the moments that I wish you would lean into and listen. And some of you do a great job of this. Some non-Christians are amazing at this, right? But it's a two-way street, right? So the Christians and the church need to lean in and say, hey, let me not tell you the absolute truth that we believe in. Let me tell you why it's good news. Yeah. And you brought that up briefly earlier. A couple of other podcasts, we're going to say that a lot, man. I love saying that I think it's one of the biggest issues in our world today is that people that don't know God, they don't want to know God because they haven't heard that it's good news to know Him. Right? And that's the thing I would just kind of ask of my non-Christian friends or people watching is when you hear news that's good coming from a Christian, just lean in for a minute and just listen because it's probably good news.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's do this. We're wrapping up our time together. I mean, I could probably talk to you for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we could keep going, but maybe some other time we'll do something else. We'll take some of these questions or something going on and just kind of dig in. But
1,000%.
Let's do lightning round as we finish up. This shouldn't take more than 2 minutes.
Bang,
I'm talking lightning round.
I think I have self-diagnosed ADHD, so this will be interesting.
Okay. I sent these questions over before, so we're going to fly through them, but I am going to look at them and read them here. So first question, if you won $10 million tomorrow, what would you spend it on? What's the first thing you'd buy?
PS5.
The mass... No. PS5. Okay, sorry. Okay, keep going. One person in your field that you'd most like to meet.
My field. Eminem, sure.
Eminem? Love it. What time of day are you most productive?
If we're talking music, it's between 6 p.m. and 2 a.m., yeah. If it's outside of that, it's 6 to 6, baby.
Work. Okay, I got it. Favorite productivity hack?
You have to do it.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, you just have to. What do you mean? There's no other option.
I'm
terrible about that with cleaning my house.
Okay.
But with music and everything else, I
love it. Just favorite productivity hack. LC3 says, just do it.
Yeah, buy the shirt, by the way. Just Do It by Nike.
All right. 3 books that you'd suggest.
I don't read. I'm just kidding.
Should we at least say Bible? I don't know.
The Book of Judges. It's a book about biblical assassins and God saying it's okay to kill those people. Second, the book by Jordan Peterson that I haven't read yet. And third, the one where the dude raps it on TikTok. It's a what's it? Dr. Seuss book. Dr. Seuss book rapping dude.
Awesome.
Very entertaining.
I love it. All right, 3 movies that you suggest.
Oh, Sense and Sensibility. It is, if you like medieval heartthrob movies, that's one. Don't watch the Twilight series, it's awful.
So you don't suggest that one?
Yeah,
okay.
Don't suggest that one. Anything but that one, and all the stuff Marvel before Endgame. Besides Multiverse of Madness was good. I like that.
All right, got it. What would be the title of the book about you if written by your enemies?
See, I thought about this. I thought of 2 different titles. One was The Most Inspirational Man on the Planet, because I inspire my haters all the time.
Wow, okay.
I thought a really good one was How I Met Your Father. I thought would be a really funny book.
Wow.
But
that was way better than that. Okay. All right. I love that. I'm going to mark that down for future. All right. What's one question that you wish I would have asked?
What's my favorite video game and what's my favorite Magic the Gathering card? Yeah.
Let's do it. What's your favorite both of those?
Video game series would be Kingdom Hearts, probably. And Magic the Gathering card. Right now it's Kalia the Vast. I don't know why. You got to see later.
Like it.
Bang, bang.
Let's see. How would you have answered? I just did that. Where can listeners find you online?
Listen, you can find me everywhere. I am everywhere.
Sneaking in every corner of the internet. Okay.
And to make it easy, it's LC3 #1 on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.
Yep.
Twitch is LC3 TTV, and Spotify, Apple Music, all that is just LC3. All right. If you're confused about the LC3 #1 thing, it's LC the number 3, like 1, 2, 3, the symbol, and #1 is spelled out. Confuses every cashier I ever give my email to.
Love it. And we'll put some of that stuff down in the description of this so folks can find you, man.
Awesome.
All right. Well, that's it, man. That was that was fun.
Yeah, it was good.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, man.
Again, we could talk forever. We might do this again. It was
absolutely
a lot of fun. After this, he's right. We're going to go play a couple of games of Magic the Gathering. Just a shout out. I wish I could figure out how to set that up to at some point in the future. We're going to be watching that.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. But anyway, again, so Jake here, also known as Pastor J Online, Pastor J Media, and now Pastor J Podcast. Thank you so much for being with me and my boy Larry Cooper, LC3.
Yeah, that's right.
So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next episode. Peace.
I still don't rap for fun. All the people that came from my stuff, you better comment and share this to everybody. All right?
Yeah, do it.
I don't care. All right, you better do it. I don't care, dude. Love you. Take it easy.
Thanks.